Have you checked the children? Use your little Mesa.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Jaime Fuego.
And the reason we're singing is because today we are covering a Patreon request from Sam Glass.
We'll forever remember you, Samuel.
Wow, that's... Okay, well, clearly we know the more musically inclined person here. We are here to talk about The Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes, as the name One Swan takes things over and everything goes weird with our protagonist.
You know you can sing if you just plug in.
I can, yeah.
Oh my God.
Dude, I love this movie, and as far as initial impressions go, I've been talking it up forever, but it is such a peculiar mid-70s Brian De Palma amalgamation of a little bit of romance, a little bit of horror, a little bit of like commentary about the music business at the time. There's a lot of homoeroticism, which is cool too, you know. So there's some meat. Come on, man. But yeah, I enjoy so much about this movie, and Jessica Harper too. Two of her musical bits specifically, I adore. But I know this movie is not for everybody. So since I've given mine,
So yeah, my overall thoughts are, I enjoyed it for what it was, but this is not the kind of movie I typically would seek out. I could see, at the risk of betraying anything, I could see why Sam likes this movie. This does feel, on a completely separate note, this does feel like a movie that a gay person would like quite a bit.
oh well,
It is very costumey and very show tunes-y, especially towards the end. You know, when
I'm in touch with myself, and I love this shit too, man.
Look, I'm
mean,
in touch
come
with
on.
myself too. I'm just saying, it is a very sort of flamboyant ending
Yes.
with all the costumes
Very
and
much so.
all of that.
Yeah.
So that is not to be said as a detractor for the movie.
No,
It just
no, it's what makes it so awesome in a lot of ways.
in a lot of ways, yes. However, I have a fondness for very few musicals. There have to be, I guess, certain things that really need to fall into place. And unfortunately, in this day and age, it's not really kosher to say I'm a big fan of Joss Whedon musicals. However, the Buffy musical and the actual Dr. Horrible sing-along blog, great musicals. I enjoy those in spite of the creator. So I do know what a good musical can do to tickle my fancy. Mm-hmm. This one just didn't do it. This one just felt like a guy getting shit on for the entire movie, but, you know, trying to bring justice to the world via violence, you know.
A little bit
So
here and
I
there.
did like aspects of the story. I didn't like necessarily the way it was executed, but at the same time, I also understand the limitations of the time frame in which they made the movie. So overall, it was entertaining, but it is not something that I am going to personally revisit on a regular basis.
Well, I own the Blu-ray, and
I bought it too. I own it now
love
too.
It. But yeah. Once again, I mean, this is one that I appreciate its weirdness. However, there are scenes, and you know, like the prison escape and a few other bits that I just kind of chuckle at, and they don't feel like they fit the tone. That's where the tone is all over the place. De Palma obviously went on to do, you know, Carrie, the Stephen King adaptation, the Scarface remake. I mean, De Palma is very well respected.
He didn't do Snake Eyes, did he?
Maybe he did.
I think
He
I'm
also, dude, De Palma
tying
almost.
that into Snake Eyes.
Well, De Palma also did the original Mission Impossible film with Tom Cruise.
Okay.
So he's done many big things. He was buddies with, you know, Lucas and Scorsese and Spielberg. They were all friends in that New York scene, and so it's a daring movie, even more so at the time, in my estimation, which is why I respect it so much more. To come out in the mid-70s like it did, and some of the themes it explored, whether overtly or within subtext. And so I love this movie. I don't love every single song, but I do love most of the originals for it. and well, shit, I think they're all originals for it. So story-wise, if we're gonna segue into that and like hit that shizzle proper, so we have this guy who is desperately trying to sell the extent of very visionary composition that he's put together. He's like doing entire opera and like play with a very musical forefront to it, and he unfortunately has somebody take advantage of him, which is very often the case in not just the music industry, but you know, films and TV and whatever. If you
All
sign
kinds of things.
if you sign a multi-picture deal, if you sign a multi-album commitment to a label and you're just starting out, I mean, that's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility, and all too often if you're an emerging person and not well established, you're not going to make that much on all of that commitment. And so it's kind of the situation this guy could have fallen himself into, and it's actually a little bit worse. He doesn't get locked into success. He has his music stolen, and and this is where the Phantom of the Opera aspect comes into place, Phantom of the Paradise. He is mangled, disfigured, and on the verge of death, and somehow survives with a very goofy looking metal head sort of thing going on. But
it has to be pressed up to one
Yeah.
eye in order to work correctly.
yeah, but all of the more so story for me, and just his sad plight, where he's in love with the Jessica Harper character, who is, various things, most notably the first Suspiria, but prominent in her day, and she is his love interest, and she sings her ass off in a couple different bits.
She is his angel of music. I mean, it's Phantom of the Opera.
It is.
I mean, just done
With completely different
completely
songs.
different songs
Yeah.
and rock twist. But it's Phantom of the Opera. That's fucking what it is exactly. And as a fan of Phantom of the Opera, I actually appreciated it for that aspect. But again, when it comes down to execution, the execution of it was just a little lackluster for me. I mean, it was a lot of, just camera movements that were, trying to show chaos during certain scenes, but didn't do it. It just felt like a camera operator trying to show chaos. And so the way they made certain things just didn't really click with me as much. And there was a lot of music that ultimately didn't feel like it meant everything most of the time. So it's kind of weird. You had to be, or I had to really, disassociate myself from some of the words that were on screen in order to appreciate the whole, because I'm like, I didn't care about necessarily what they were singing about, so I had to fall back on the presentation of said song, and that just didn't always save it for me.
Yeah. No, I can contend with that. I don't know. It's very much so an A and a B, like yin and a yang kind of directorial situation from Brian here, in the fact that so the musical sets, like the opening bit that was like very glitzy and 50s looking, and then even some of the other stuff like Meat taking over and doing the like goth heavy metal bit at the end of the film,
or those earlier dudes doing the skeleton versions of themselves doing that song.
Yeah, there was a lot where I felt the musical segues went a lot better than the actual narrative segues, and that's why I pointed out to like the prison escape and a few other bits where they're very just manically edited and very quick, and just cuts and stuff when I didn't know if they were necessary. And I feel like it throws off a comprehension of the narrative in some ways, especially Swan and his nastiness to acting. He was good as far as this like slimy producer venue running kind of guy, but I don't know, in some ways I feel like the love of our goofy sort of guy who is taken advantage of and becomes our Phantom, I was a little less about him, the dorky composer stereotype, glasses and very just naive. And,
even as the
and
Phantom,
whatnot.
I still wanted to kick him down some stairs.
Yeah, in some ways he just he didn't bring it. I still Harper, man, I think she's great in this as the love interest. she doesn't get as much. She has that one scene where she auditions and shows off singing in front of all the other girls and all the other chicks at this.
They're like
it's
bopping
kind of
along.
like it's kind of like a borderline brothel, and they're just standing and looking. They're like, oh, and they start kind of grooving a little bit, bopping, as you said. So that's one of my favorite acted scenes in the film is her. But once again, the musical acting and just how that progresses the story, as little as it does sometimes, are my favorite scenes. It's the music in this movie that I like more so than the actual narrative, I would contend.
That's fair. You're probably not the only one, but it just didn't sing with me as well as it did with you, so to speak.
Well, and it's totally all right to say.
Some of the acting, I think, was definitely stronger than others. I think the main guy that ended up becoming the Phantom was so over the top. But his love interest, the main girl, was actually good. And then Swan and his crony were, typical...
Stop staring at me.
Yeah, typical, baddies that weren't really bad, that you could probably knock over and just move out of their way and just escape pretty easily. But I don't know. It's not how they played it, and so it didn't... It was okay. All of it was just kind of okay. Nothing really to write home about. Nothing that I will seek out to watch again in the very near future by any stretch.
Well, it's in your collection if you reconsider. So
I know,
that's
it's a problem.
Totally all right.
It might end up in someone's boogie box. We'll see.
Oh.
Like, I feel bad saying that, but
still
it's
have
not
it.
one that I would want to revisit that much, except for the Phantom sort of tie-in. I love the Phantom of the Opera, and this is just a skewed version of that, but it's not nearly as good.
I just contend it's not a horror movie at all, and so even reviewing
There's a
it
lot of
on
horror
even
aspects
fans-
to it,
well,
though.
Well, there is. as
After
far as
watching
the
it, I could
story.
understand why
Yeah.
he requested it on the horror show. There's definitely a lot of aspects that can be considered horror, but yeah, overall, not so much a horror movie.
I think I have a strange affinity for this, especially because of the fact that the first time I ever saw it was at Phoenix Film Bar, and they were doing a revival screening of it, and I was there with a bunch of people pre-pandemic, and just the enthusiasm and the people singing the songs and all that different stuff, almost like a Rocky Horror.
Rocky Horror, yeah.
Before Rocky Horror sort of situation.
I could see that.
I would see how that film would derive a lot of inspiration, presumably, from this being another cult musical with a lot of just androgynous, sort of overtones and stuff like that from both ends of what you may prefer. That just shows why this is influential, and even if everybody doesn't like it, I think you should still credit it. So
Yeah, fair. So I think that's pretty much going to do it for our review of Phantom of the Paradise. Thank you again to Sam Glass for requesting it via our Patreon page. If you guys didn't know, we do have a Patreon. The link to it is in the description box down below. You can actually suggest movies for us to review just like this one. And, have us spark a conversation. If you're interested in that, like I said, the link is in the description box down below. While you're down there, feel free to click the like button and subscribe if you had a good time. Want to make sure you don't miss episodes going forward.
Appreciate you.
Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias a Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.
We'll never forget you, Eddie.